The VA scandal in Phoenix and across the country was exposed 3 months ago. Secretary Shinseki resigned 2 months ago. Now, 22 veterans commit suicide every day. Tens of thousands of veterans are waiting to see a health care provider. Tens of thousands of veterans every night are homeless. Is this really a time for a political fight? Joining me now is Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger, an Iraq and Afghanistan veteran who continues to serve as a major in the Air National Guard. And still with us is U.S. Democratic Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, also an Iraq War veteran and a captain in Hawaii National Guard. Both of you, thanks so much for joining us. Congressman, you both have a unique perspective on this, as two of you are one of the only few veterans that serve in Congress. You know, 40 years ago, frankly, 4 in 5 members of Congress were veterans. Now it's 1 in 5. So you have a first-hand knowledge on how this affects our veterans. But, Congressman, the VA reform bill, does it have a shot to pass before the August recess, and what is holding it up?
Well, first off, thanks for having me, and thank you both for your service, and Tulsi for your continued service as well. But I think it does. I mean, look, we've got a week left. What we have is an agreed-upon framework right now in conference committee. It was bicameral, bipartisan. There's just a bit of a battle now between this $17 billion additional appropriation that the Senate is trying to include in this. And from our perspective, let's go ahead with the agreed-upon framework, and then we'll talk about the $17 billion and where that comes down and what we need. We got a one-page explanation of why the VA requested that, so I think it takes a little more in depth. I think we can move forward this coming week. I hope so. I'm optimistic, and I think if we don't, we ought to, get this thing done. So I'm not as pessimistic as a lot of people are, and I think we have a real opportunity to move forward here in a bipartisan way. There's a lot more bipartisanship in Washington than people think, and I think this is one opportunity where we can show that in a very public way.
Well, we're pulling for you. I know there's 20 million veterans that are pulling for you as well. Congresswoman, you and the Congressman introduced a bill that would allow the VA to reimburse civilian health care providers for treating veterans. What is the impact of that bill on the backlog, and what does your bill do?
Basically, I authored this bill called the Act Now for Veterans bill. My friend and fellow veteran Adam Kinzinger is an original co-sponsor to this, and we introduced this because of this issue that we're seeing with this larger piece of legislation being held up, because of the issue that in each of our communities across the country, we still have veterans who are waiting months, even sometimes years, for care. In my state of Hawaii, we had a veteran who was waiting since 2006 just to see a doctor for the first time. The issue is that the bureaucracy within the VA has the authority to pre-approve. They have to pre-approve before any veteran who's been waiting for months or years can go see a doctor outside the VA system. Our bill, Act Now for Veterans, is a temporary solution to this very urgent crisis of veterans waiting for care, where it would allow a veteran who's eligible for care to take their veteran's identification card, go see a doctor within their community, get the care that they need and deserve, and be assured that the VA will pay for it, eliminating the middleman and the bureaucracy from getting in the way of them receiving that care.
Congressman, let me turn back to you. You look at the footprint of the military. There was about 16 million veterans that served in World War II, about 5.5 million that served in Vietnam, and 2.6 million that served in our wars of Iraq and Afghanistan. Now, that's less than 1% of the American population now. You look at, is more privatization of VA care the bigger solution here in the long run, or what's your thoughts?
Well, look, I think, in the long run, we have to look at options like that. I think the VA obviously should stay intact and just get better at what it does. Number one, the administration should have the opportunity to fire people that work for the VA instead of just having to shuffle them around, which exists today. But I think Tulsi's bill is a great way to solve the short-term problem now as we deal with the real long-term structural issue. Less and less people in America are serving in the military. It's not necessarily a bad thing because we have better weapons and better force projection, so we need less people to be able to do that. But it also is a problem in that not as many Americans understand firsthand the experience that veterans go through when they come home, some of the struggles they have to fight with, some of the difficulties in getting into the VA and getting taken care of. And so that's where we have to figure out the way to get that and help people to understand the sacrifice that less and less Americans are making. I personally am a believer in a volunteer military because as a major in the military, I want everybody that serves under me to have chosen to be there and not necessarily be forced to be there.
Yeah, even though it is less than 1% of Americans who have served in this, the longest war in American history. I know we're wrapping up, but Congresswoman, you two are working across the aisle on this bill, Democrat and Republican. Do you get a feeling from your other colleagues that this is truly like a bipartisan issue, or is it just lip service that you're supporting the veterans?
Yeah, no, I think this absolutely is an area where there has been a lot of bipartisan outrage and ire at what we've seen has been occurring for far too long in the VA, and a bipartisan effort to find some real solutions to that. Both Adam and I sponsoring this bill is just one example. The key is now, though, to be able to actually follow that all the way through to the end, pass a bill before Congress goes into recess in August so that we can start this very difficult process of conducting a comprehensive overview of the VA. There's a lot to be done.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Congressman Kinzinger from Illinois and Congressman Gabbard from Hawaii. We really appreciate it.